Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm going to be taking you through this painting today, Cherry Blossom. You should have your palette in front of you and two brushes, a water cup, and a napkin. So let's get started. I'm going to separate my plates, and I want you to take your little brush and dip in the yellow. I'm going to do this in red so that you can see on my canvas, but you would be doing this. This is called the underpainting. We're just going to block out some areas, and you would be doing this in yellow. So I'm going to take my hand, and at the bottom of the canvas I'm going to put my hand, and approximately one hand width I'm just going to take it, and it doesn't have to be straight. This is going to be the ground line. It doesn't need to be very exact at all. It's just to give you an idea of where it's going to be. Then another hand width, that's going to be about the width of the lake, or the river I guess I should say. So that's going to go across. Then you've got that green area, and the very top of the green area, maybe a hand width, maybe a little bit less, is going to be kind of wavy. Those are going to be bushes, so that's going to be a little bit more organic. Okay, we're ready for our first color, which is going to be the blue. I am going to wet my brushes just a little bit. This is acrylic paint, so you want your brush to be wet but not drippy, and I'm just getting some of the water out. I'm going to tap it on my napkin. And I am going to take a scoop of white and about a half scoop of blue. I'm just going to put that right on top of each other, and I'm going to mix that by pushing the paint into the center of the pile and swirling it around. This is going to be the water, so if you'd like it a little bit darker, you absolutely can add more blue. And I probably wouldn't go too much lighter than this. Now, if you have two blues, which I think I'm going to give you, if you want to add a little bit of the other blue in there just to give it some added color, that's great too. All right, so we're going to use this in the water, and we're going to use horizontal strokes. So you can go ahead and paint that in real loosely. And what we're going to do is dip in some white and actually the blue too, and just add some more colors. But you want to fill that in. You can go all the way up to the line, and really you can go over the line if you want to. You may still be able to see my red line, but basically you're going to be covering that up. And I'm just really loosely, so I'm not very exactly, I'm just very loosely going back and forth. And you can actually see where some of the paint has not mixed all the way together. And that's really what I'm going for. That's what I want, because I don't want just a flat looking river. So now that I have color on there, and you can stop the video if you are still working on that, I'm going to just dip the tip of my bristles into the blue, just the very tip. I just want a little bit of paint, and you can even dab it off if you got too much. And now very lightly, I'm just gonna brush in there. So you can see I got some blue there. I'm gonna do that again. In fact, I'll bring my palette over. If you want to make it wavy, some people do that. They actually put a little bit of movement in the water with this technique. So you're just adding real lightly, just a little bit of blue here and there. And then we can do the same thing with the white. Just dip just the tip of your bristles in the white, and you can add a little bit right there. Now let's say you add a big blob like I did. I don't really want that much white in there. All you really have to do is just work it back and forth. It will mix right there. As long as your paint stays wet, things will mix together. So you can just go back and forth. If you put too much white on, add a little more blue, or add some of that blue that we mixed. And this is going to be our water. Now keep in mind, the water is not the focal point of the picture. The focal point is the tree, so we don't have to worry too much about it, but we do want it to have some variation in it. We don't want it to just be a flat blue. Okay, all right, so I've got that color on, and then I am going to put a little of this in the sky, and just here and there, and then what I'm gonna do is dip my brush in white, and this time I'm gonna give it a nice little dunk in there, because what I'm gonna do is mix on my canvas, and I'm just gonna lighten this blue up. So I'm adding the white over top, and I'm just pulling it, mixing it back and forth with what I have there. And don't worry about the waviness of the line yet, we'll figure that out with the green. If you wanna kind of follow it with the blue, that's fine. I'm gonna get a little more white on my brush to spread this out. And most of the sky is gonna be behind the tree. So you don't need to worry too much about this, but we do want it to be fully covered. The back of the canvas, you should have completely covered with this light blue. While you're working on this, if you want to wrap these colors around the edge of your canvas is wrapped all the way around, so the sides can be painted too. I need a little bit more of my original color, just because I'm running out of blue. So I'll put a little bit up there, and then again, I'm just putting the white right over top and just kind of working it in. If you see these little white dots, that means you just need a little bit more paint. So I'm gonna add some more paint there. You shouldn't see those little white speckles. You're actually filling in the little crevices in the canvas. So when you start seeing that, you just need a little extra paint. All right, so that is my sky. And again, a lot of that's gonna be covered up, so we're not gonna worry too much about it. Okay, you don't need to rinse your brush now because we're gonna make green. So what we're gonna do is add a huge scoop of yellow to the blue that we have. If you don't have any of this light blue left, you can take about a scoop of white, a scoop of yellow, and about a half scoop of blue and mix that up. This is gonna be a very light green color. And in fact, if this is too like lime green, you can add just a little bit of blue to it and it will darken up. We're gonna have some darker colors in there, but even this looks a little light to me, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of blue. There we go, that's a little better. I like lime green, but I don't necessarily wanna start out with that, so this is a little bit more towards medium, I would say. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the ground. I'm gonna come right up to the water. Your underpainting should be yellow, so when you put this green on, you should not see it. And again, take your time on this. I just don't want this video to be too long, so feel free to stop it as you color in your grass and all these big sections. I'm sure you will be more careful with them. All right, so I've got my green, and what I'm gonna do, same thing that I did with this river, I'm actually just gonna dip a little bit in the yellow. And I want to be able to see the yellow. You can see in the original the yellow highlights that are in the grass. The only thing you want to do is just keep the strokes horizontal. So you're just adding a little bit of yellow in there. You're using horizontal back and forth strokes. You can see the yellow highlight. You can add more later too if you want to, but I'm just adding a little bit of yellow here and there. If you want to add a little bit of dark color here and there, you can add a little bit of blue to a portion of your green. And I will put this, I'll just add that in a little bit. You can see it's a slight difference. All right, so that is the ground. And again, you can bring this around to the edges if you want to. Just right where you put it on the front, that's where you're gonna wrap it around the sides. And don't forget the bottom of the canvas. If you are doing your edges, you can turn it and then do the bottom. Okay, so green for that midsection, the field, let's say, I'm gonna rinse my brush out because I have a lot of white in my brush right now because we mixed that white and blue initially. So now what I'm gonna do is just make a regular green. It doesn't have white in it, at least not to start out. So I'm going to just mix a scoop of yellow and about a half scoop of blue. And I'm just gonna mix that. And that's a pretty good green. If you want it a little bit darker, you could start out a little darker with just a tiny bit more blue. And I'm gonna go ahead and add this in. Now this may look a little bit streaky to you because we don't have any white. And white, when we add white to a color, it definitely takes some of that streakiness out. So what you can do in this case is just give it 2 coats. So if it looks streaky to you, depending on how thick you're putting it on, you can also just give it 2 coats. And we're gonna smudge some brown at the edge there in a little bit, but we'll get this on first. I really do want that red to be covered up. All right, I'm probably gonna add another darker color over that, but for now that'll work. And if you wanna put some of that darkness in the bottom, you can add a little bit in your grass too, like there. All right, so now we're gonna make the brown for the tree, and we're gonna add that into this top section and darken it up a little bit, but this is also gonna be the main color for the trunk of the tree. So what you wanna do is, you can actually use that green and or you can make a new color, but it's gonna be a scoop of yellow, about a half scoop of blue, and maybe just start out with a little bit of red, maybe less than a half scoop. You can see that brown coming through. Now, if it looks too purpley, you're gonna add yellow because you have too much red and blue. If it looks too green, you wanna add some more red. And if it looks too like orangey, then you'll add some more blue. So that's a pretty good brown. It's not very bright. I'm just gonna give it a little bit more blue and possibly a little more red. So now it's kind of a greenish, so I'm just gonna give it a little more red. And this may take a little while, so get it to, you know, a color that you like. Add a little more red. Oh. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, now I'm not gonna add this for the tree yet because I know my background is probably pretty wet, but what I am gonna do is just use my finger, or you can use your brush. You can use your brush and add a little bit of that brown along the edge and then use your finger and kind of just spread it around. So this is just gonna give you a little bit of an edge, a brown edge. You can see that. You can see it right here. You've got some brown through there. So you're just adding a little bit of color and then you're moving it around with your finger. And my background is very wet, so it's kind of blending in with the green a little bit. You probably want to let yours dry just a little bit more. If the brown, let's say you let your background dry and the brown is not moving around like you want it to, like you're not pushing it around, you can wet your finger. And this paint is very wet, so I don't need to do that here. It's blending in and fanning out just fine. But if you let your background dry so that it's not blending in as much, you may need to wet your finger and then use your hand to blend it in. So I'm just putting a little bit of brown here and there. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just wanted some brown up here because my green was pretty light. So I figure I'll just add some brown in. And in fact, I could even add a little brown into that green. If I wanted to add like a little bit of darker green here and there. That's a little too much. All right. So I'm good on that. I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm just gonna make one more sort of darker green. So in this case, instead of taking a scoop of yellow and about a half scoop of blue, I'm gonna take a scoop of blue and just a half scoop of yellow, so backwards, and this should make a darker green for me. If you like this green better, you can use this for your hills. That's fine. I'm actually gonna add a little bit of this in because I feel like my hills are very light. Now I've got that brown happening there too, so it's all kind of blending together. which I like, but if you don't like that, you can just add a little bit of this darker green here and there. And the real reason that I made it is so that we can put some of these little grass tufts in the lower section. But this is kind of that second coat I was talking about, so that it doesn't look too streaky. And just keep the strokes horizontal. Bringing that brown up. All right, so we are going to use this green to add some little grass tufts in our bottom section. So go ahead and take your little brush, because we want these to be thin. I'm just gonna take my little brush. I'm gonna go in that dark green and very thin lines, so you're just barely touching the canvas, and you're just gonna pull up little tufts. So they're gonna be like a bunch of little lines, and they don't have to, I got some wetness on my brush. They don't have to be any certain length. I'm just adding kind of a group of little lines. They can even go different ways, like this. They don't have to all go in the same direction, but these are kind of where you're gonna put some flowers. And we're also going to put them, they're also located kind of by the bottom of the tree. So you can do a couple, maybe five tufts. Maybe you want to put some near the edge of the river. Your river should be kind of dry now, so you could probably go over top of that blue. And you can see this one is kind of thick, even though I'm trying to use light pressure. As I finish up using the paint, it gets extremely thin, because it's basically I'm running out of paint on my brush, and it makes it a thinner looking line, but also kind of wispier too, which is kind of cool. So maybe I'm just gonna do one more here. And then before I move off of this color, I'm just gonna dip directly in the yellow, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of a yellow highlight into some of these, and it might blend, which is fine. If you're gentle with it and you have a fair amount on your brush, it should sit on top. See how that's just straight yellow? Now, if I had a really thin amount and I put it over the green, you wouldn't even see it. But because I kind of dipped my full little brush in and I real lightly added it, it's sitting on top. You could also let some of this green dry and do it. Sure, you could do that too. And it doesnand have to be everywhere. I love yellow highlights in the grass and in the green color, so I could probably go a little crazy with it, but I'm just gonna add a little bit more. And I think that's good. I was gonna say too, if you want to add just a little bit of brown highlights in your grass, you can take that brown that we already made and just maybe like real lightly. And again, you don't have to do this. I'm just adding another color in there, real lightly. And I'm kind of pulling up and away from the canvas to get that spikiness on the top. Okay, all right, so we're ready for our tree. You can dip your little brush in the brown. And what you wanna do, and I hope mine is dry enough, hopefully we'll be able to come over top of this. You can let this dry. So this is a good time to take a break, go get a snack, drinks, let everything dry. I'm gonna keep filming, but if it doesn't turn out well, then we'll stop too. What you wanna do is find your center, and you don't want the tree to be exactly center. So I'm gonna move off to the left just a little bit. The tree does start in this bottom section, so I'm just gonna do one line coming up, and I'm gonna start Ying off. I'm just gonna do the letter Y first of all. So it's very thin. I'm gonna thicken that up, but just the first stroke is start at the bottom section, go all the way up, and start your Y kind of near the top of the green section. If you're up in the blue when you start the Y, if you're here, that's fine too. Not a big deal. These branches are really just meant to give your tree some shape. This is kind of where you're going to put the blooms. It is mostly going to be covered up, so don't stress too much about your tree. I know I keep saying don't stress about things, but this is a pretty forgiving painting. All right, so I've got, every time I come off, I'm just coming off in the shape of a Y. So here's my Y here, here. I do want to reach out across. I want to come back past center with the branches. So maybe I even do like another branch there. So I have the main Y, but then maybe I come off a little bit lower. All right, so I'm going to thicken that up. And if you want to draw the outer edges of your tree and then fill it in, that's totally fine. I just kind of sort of organically make it thicker as I go. And I'm going to thicken up these branches just a little. Again, most of the time we're not going to see much of these branches. They're going to be covered up by all those pink blossoms. You can make it softly come into the branch. You're a little bit thicker where they meet, and you're thinner at the edges. So the edge is just going to be that one line that you put on there. You probably don't need to thicken up the edge. You're just going to thicken up towards the trunk of the tree. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be super beautiful because we're not going to see a lot of this. We just want the bones to be there. Okay, so that's the upper part. The bottom of the tree you are gonna see. So you want to possibly put 2 coats of your brown in there, especially if it looks a little bit streaky to you. And then we're also gonna add some white into our brown. At the bottom, it's not straight across. So I'm just bringing some brush strokes down like this. You're kind of fanning out into a triangle. See how it's like a triangle shape? And you're just adding, or you could think of it like as an upside down V. So you can bring maybe 1 or 2 of these roots out, or you can have a lot like this. And that's totally up to you. You can see in the painting up there that there's a lot of little roots. All right, so you've got this brown here, and I'm just gonna take the tip of my bristles in the white, and I'm going to just draw in some lines going up and down my tree. And this is sort of to give it some texture. If you want to draw like a little hole here and make it dark, if you want to like put some blue in there, make it look like a dark black, you could do that. I'm just adding some white in here. And it should blend right in. You're not adding white really on top. It's not really going to sit on top. We want it to blend into the brown to make some lighter colors. And if it gets too light, go back with your original brown and go back over some of it. So that's fine too. As long as it's wet, it will mix and remix, darker, lighter, until you're happy with it. Okay, so we're done with the tree, done with the background, and now we're going to start on those pinks. So if you want to, the first pink color, I hope I have enough room here, I might need another plate. I'm gonna take just a little bit of brown, a big scoop of red, and a little bit of white. And that is gonna be a mauve-ish color, so it's gonna be a very dark reddish. You can kind of see it has a little bit of purpleness to it. That's from the colors in the brown. I might put just a little more brown in there. And this can be as dark as you want it to be. If you don't want it this light, you can put some more brown and red. You don't need as much white in here. Okay, now that it's mixed, I'm going to take my big brush, and I'm just gonna show you what we're doing. I may not do the whole tree, and you can use the different brushes if you want to make it look different, but what we're gonna do is just dab So I'm gonna basically use the branches as my base, but I'm just gonna dab this color. There's gonna be about, probably about 3 different colors that we add on top of this. So I'm just dabbing. I want to show you what the little brush looks like. Some people do use the little brush for this part, and that's completely fine. If you want to lay the little brush on its side, it looks more like this. If you want to do that with certain colors and not others, that would be fine too. You can see this one was probably done mostly with the big brush. It does not look like it has a lot of those little brush strokes that I was just showing you. That looks like it's mostly with the big brush. All right, so we're gonna fill this in, fill in all of your branches. And again, they don't have to touch the branches exactly. We're just putting this color in the background of our tree. And I'm trying to put them around each branch, and then we'll fill in with some of the other colors. It's okay if your red picks up a little of the brown if it's not dry, or you can absolutely wait until the tree is completely dry before you start this part. Okay, so we are working from dark to light. So the next color that I'm gonna make is going to have a scoop of red and really just a corner of white, not much. I want this to be sort of a hot pink color. And I can always add a little bit more white. So that didn't do a lot, and so I am gonna add a little more white. I want kind of a hot pink. There we go. So we've got hot pink, then light pink, and maybe some white too. All right, so here's the next color. And if you're not a huge fan of this color, then you don't need to use a lot of it. But see how I'm starting to fill in the tree. And again, you probably are gonna take a ton more time doing this. You can twist the brush a little bit too if you want. You can have some straight up and down, some sideways. And I'm kind of making it look a little fuller. I think I don't want to do any dropping petals yet. I'm going to save that for the lighter colors. All right, so I've got that pink in there. And now I'm just going to add some more white. A pretty healthy scoop of white. Oops, that's a lot. And this is going to be a lighter pink. You can use this one a lot to fill in. This is kind of the main color that you see in the tree. The reds or the darker pinks and that maroon color are just the background that we used, kind of our base. Now you can see some blue through the tree. It really depends on how thick you want to make it. Some people literally make this look like a circle. Mine is kind of, it's not really a shape. It's just here. All right, so you can put as much of that color as you might like. Maybe bring it up a little here. And then if you want to add some dabs coming down with this color, that would be good. And for that, I will use the little brush. All right, so here's some petals, maybe falling down. Maybe I dab like 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so they're just falling a little bit. Because this has white in it, it should sit on top of all those other colors, even the brown and the blue and the green. And then if you would like to give yourself a base color for some flowers, you can add some dabs on some of those tufts. And you don't have to do all of them, but you can do some of those. Okay, and then I'm going to, if you want to actually use that darker one on some of the flowers, that's cool. Okay, one more scoop of white in here. We're gonna lighten up that pink one more time. This is gonna be our lightest pink. So I'm gonna take half scoop of white, a little bit more. And your colors don't need to match mine exactly. I've still got a lot in my brush. Okay, that's a nice light color. You can even see at the edges, there's some of that white that's not mixed in. I like that, but if you hate it, just go right over top again and it'll mix right there. You don't have to do a brush stroke to have it mix in. It will mix while you're dabbing as well. And so you can add as much of this color as you want. When it starts to not make a difference anymore, then you're out of paint and you need to go dip again. Because now I'm just blending into all that wet pink paint. All right, and then last color, if you want to go one more tint, you're making tints when you add white. If you want to go one lighter, you absolutely can. Or what you can also do is just take that brush, dip it straight into the white. You don't need a ton on there. I'm going to take my palette up to the painting, and I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to just put straight white in some spots. And that will lighten up the pink just right there. Some of it might stay white, and that's fine. And again, I'm not doing the full painting here, but that's how you're gonna finish your tree. You're just gonna use those lighter pinks, and you can fill in, and then at the very end, you can use that white to do the same thing. And then on these flowers, you can leave them like that, or I'm gonna take my little brush one more time in that lightest pink that I have, and I'm just gonna dab just here and there. Maybe these are only the light pinks. And that's really it. That is your cherry blossom tree. It's all about making a lot of different pinks. And we did a lot of blending, made our own brown color. So if you want to add a few of those light pink petals in the river, you absolutely can. Remember, some of them are blowing off the tree. And make it your own. So I'm going to finish this, and I hope you had a fun time painting with us.